Have you ever noticed how haste and anxiety make us miss out on the best of life? Many times we are running after everything, trying to solve problems by shouting, and we end up forgetting that calm is a powerful weapon. The truth is that silence and serenity do not mean weakness, but inner strength. And when this calmness comes from God, it not only calms the heart, but also renews the soul and opens doors that haste insists on closing. Now imagine for a moment, what if you could turn your anger into peace, your fear into confidence, and your anxiety into rest? This is not just a beautiful idea, it is a real promise, present in several biblical stories and confirmed in passages that cross the centuries. The secret is to understand that calm is more than a pause. It is a lifestyle capable of changing the course of any storm. In this video, you'll discover how men and women in the Bible overcame challenges not through haste or brute force, but through patience, wisdom, and faith. You will realize how serenity can be a shield against anxiety and how silence can reveal answers that the noises of the world hide. Each teaching will be like a compass, pointing to the peace that God desires to pour out upon you. So, get ready to dive into a transformative journey. If you have already grown tired of living in a rush, suffocated by fear and anxiety, this is the time to take a deep breath, rest in God, and rediscover the strength that only His calm can bring. If you want to learn how God's calm can transform your life, then leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs this message. And don't forget to comment below. What else steals your calm today? Let's grow on this journey together. Calm is not passivity, but a form of power that many have not yet realized. Those who manage to maintain silence amidst the noise of emotions find a strength that cannot be seen with the naked eye. It is like a gentle rain that refreshes the dry land, silent but essential. Proverbs 14:29 already teaches that the long-suffering one is great in understanding. That is, the one who masters patience reveals greater wisdom than the one who explodes in anger or lives in a hurry. When we let anxiety guide our decisions, we see the world as a blurry lens. Calmness, on the contrary, is like the glass cleaner that restores clarity to the vision. Instead of acting on impulse, serenity gives you space to listen better, understand situations, and choose the right time to act. This posture not only prevents mistakes, but also restores relationships, because patience disarms the heat of anger and paves the way for peace. How many times have you regretted speaking too fast or making decisions without thinking? This is the picture of haste. A strong wind that knocks down buildings that are still fragile. Calm, on the other hand, acts as an invisible wall, protecting you from the consequences of a hasty heart. Self-control, the fruit of trust in God, makes your inner strength become a shield against external attacks and against your own internal fears. Practicing calmness is also a daily spiritual exercise. A practical tip is to start the day with moments of silence. Turn off notifications, take a deep breath, and meditate on a psalm such as Psalm 62.1, which talks about resting in God alone. This simple habit reorganizes thoughts and gives serenity to deal with what will come. Thus, little by little, you realize that calmness is not weakness, but the wisdom that transforms fear into confidence and anger into peace. Haste has a treacherous way of disguising itself as efficiency, but deep down, it is a thief of peace. How many times do we make quick decisions only to solve it quickly and then find ourselves stuck in regrets? The Bible warns in Proverbs 19:2 that a soul without knowledge is not good, and he who hurries with his feet sins. Calm, on the other hand, is like a shield that protects from dangerous shortcuts, showing that waiting at the right time is always safer. Think about how many stories we already know of people who missed good opportunities by rushing in. It's like building a house in a hurry. The walls may rise quickly, but the lack of foundation knocks everything down in the first storm. When calm guides, the heart gains serenity to wait for the exact time. It is in this silence that wisdom flourishes, bringing clarity, peace, and confidence to move forward without fear. Haste is like a strong wind that kicks up dust and blinds us. Calm is like gentle rain that refreshes and gives life. When we learn to slow down, we see beyond the obvious and notice details that the rush hides. It's not about being slow, but about acting consciously, transforming anxiety into rest and fear into confidence. It is at this pace that lasting fruits are born. A simple practice to escape the traps of haste is to create mindful breaks throughout the day. Before you send a message in a moment of anger, take a deep breath. Before responding to criticism, pray silently. And before you make a big decision, ask God for direction. Thus, you exchange anxiety for the silence that opens doors and discover that calm always saves where haste usually destroys. Proverbs 14:29 says, "The long-suffering one is great in understanding, but the one with a hasty spirit exalts foolishness." This verse directly summarizes the contrast between calm and haste. Patience is a sign of wisdom, while acting on impulse reveals folly. Calm gives us time to listen more, think better, and choose firmer paths. Haste, on the other hand, driven by anxiety, generates mistakes that could have been avoided. This principle is like a divine warning. Those who cultivate patience build bridges, those who hurry build walls. Calmness not only brings inner peace, but also creates an environment of trust all around. Relationships are restored when someone chooses to listen with serenity instead of responding with anger. And even professional decisions become better when we give space for reflection. Think of practical situations. A work meeting in which everyone speaks at the same time, but only those who keep silent notice the essential detail. Or a family argument where anger wanted to command, but silence opened doors that noise would have closed. The wisdom of Proverbs 14:29 is not theoretical, it is practical and can be applied in any area of life, from home to business. If you want to cultivate this kind of calm, try turning small moments into workout opportunities. When you feel anxiety creeping in, remember this verse and repeat it quietly. This practice works as a shield that protects the heart from haste. Thus, with each decision, you will be guided not by the emotion of the moment, but by the serenity that comes from God and brings lasting peace. Calmness is like a glass cleaner on a rainy day. It removes the anxiety that blurs vision and makes you see clearly what seemed confusing. When the heart quiets down, fear loses space and the mind can evaluate wisely. It is in this inner silence that the answers arise, not in haste. Serenity allows you to see hidden solutions, while anxiety only multiplies problems. In relationships, calm has the power to calm emotional storms. An apology said at the right time can heal years of heartache, but it takes patience and self-control. Anger, when it explodes, destroys. Peace, on the other hand, when it speaks louder, builds bridges. It is at this point that Proverbs 16:32 comes to life. Better is the long suffering than the mighty one. Calm restores what the noise tried to break. At the right time, calm also reveals opportunities that haste covers. How many marriages, businesses, and friendships wear out simply because someone didn't know how to wait? Calm works like a compass in the midst of chaos, directing us to safe choices. When we trust in God, we realize that even delays can be part of the perfect plan. The rest of faith transforms waiting into learning. A simple practice is to use calmness as a filter before any major decision. Ask yourself, Am I choosing because it's the right time, or because anxiety is pressing on me? This reflection already changes everything. Often, as you wait, you will see doors open that were hidden. And when that happens, the feeling is that God was just setting the stage, while calm guarded his heart in peace. History shows us, time and time again, that haste leaves traces of regret, while calm writes chapters of victory. Abraham, for example, rushed to try to help God and brought difficult consequences to his family. Joseph, on the other hand, patiently endured years of imprisonment and injustice until he became the ruler of Egypt. Calm was his key to turning pain into purpose. This difference becomes clear when we think about the decisions we make in the heat of anxiety. Haste is like a strong wind that uproots trees, but calm is like gentle rain that strengthens the soil. The fruit of serenity is lasting because it is born at the right time. The hurry, on the other hand, may even seem sweet at first, but it soon turns out to be bitter. It is curious how patience not only protects, but also opens doors. Joseph did not seek revenge when his brothers appeared before him. Instead, he responded with forgiveness. If he had acted in the haste of anger, he would have destroyed the reconciliation that God had prepared. Calm won where precipitation would have destroyed everything. That same choice is before us, in every decision, small or large. To apply this in everyday life, try transforming moments of waiting into moments of prayer. Instead of complaining about the delay, use this time to align your heart with God's will. This change in posture brings confidence and peace because it reminds us that even the silence of God is a space of preparation. Calm, in this sense, not only overcomes haste, but also transforms defeats into victories. Abraham is remembered as the father of faith, but his story also shows the dangers of haste. When she decided to have a child with Hagar, instead of waiting for God's promise in Sarah, she opened a door of family strife that spanned generations. Haste brought unnecessary pain, proving that anxiety can lead us to dangerous shortcuts. The fear of time and the lack of patience cost him dearly. On the other hand, Jose is the living portrait of the calm that saves. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery and unjustly imprisoned, he could have let anger and fear dominate his heart. But he chose patience, trust, and faith. This serenity was the key to his becoming governor of Egypt at the right time. His waiting turned suffering into victory. It is impressive how these two examples complement each other. Abraham shows us that haste breeds repentance, while Joseph reminds us that calmness bears lasting fruit. The difference was not only in the circumstances, but in the inner posture. While one was carried away by anxiety, the other used silence and rest in God as inner strength. The result was completely different. In practice, this challenges us to reflect. Do you act more like Abraham, giving in to anxiety, or like Joseph, maintaining patience until God's plan is revealed? A good way to train is to establish daily moments of pause and prayer. Instead of looking for shortcuts, surrender your decisions to the Lord. Thus, little by little, calm shapes his character and opens doors that haste would never open. Haste is like a seller of illusions. It promises quick results, but delivers regrets. It often pushes us to act before we think, and the price paid is high. Calm, on the other hand, has a different rhythm, almost against the logic of the modern world. It requires patience, but it bears fruit that endures. What is born quickly may even grow fast, but what matures at the right time lasts much longer. If we look at life, how many decisions made in anxiety have not resulted in sleepless nights? It is regret knocking on the door. On the other hand, those who have learned to wait reap serenity and peace. Silence, when practiced, becomes a fertile field for wisdom to flourish. It is in rest that God speaks most clearly. And it is in calmness that hidden answers appear. Calmness, in this sense, not only prevents mistakes but also builds solid stories. Imagine a farmer trying to harvest ahead of time. The fruit has not ripened, and the effort has been wasted. So it is with those who rush into it. On the other hand, the one who waits, trusts, and cultivates patience experiences lasting results. Proverbs 19:2 reinforces this truth. Rashness always leads to stumbling. In practice, exercising this calm can start with small things. Wait a while before responding to tense messages. Say a short prayer before making an important decision. Cultivate moments of rest and silence, even on busy days. These attitudes seem simple, but they work like bricks in the construction of a life without regrets. Calm not only protects, but also generates fruits that feed generations. Silence is an underrated weapon. While the noise generates confusion and closes paths, the silence opens doors that no one imagined. In discussions, it is often not the quick answer that solves, but the calmness of listening more and talking less. Proverbs 17:27-28 teaches that even a fool, when he is silent, can be considered wise. Wisdom, therefore, is often in choosing silence. Jesus gave us the greatest example before Pilate. Instead of screaming his innocence or defending himself with harsh words, he remained silent. This gesture was not weakness, but inner strength. Jesus' silence spoke louder than any argument, showing that peace can be more convincing than shouting. He teaches us that we don't always need to respond, but trust in God's timing. In relationships, silence can also be transformative. How many family or work arguments have ended in heartache because of too many words? Noise, like an insistent noise, closes doors, but silence makes room for reflection, for the other to be heard, and for patience to manifest itself. It is in silence that peace finds room to grow. To apply this, practice what James 1:19 recommends. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Try, in tense moments, holding your tongue for a few seconds before responding. Take a deep breath, pray silently, and only then speak. This small habit has the power to change the course of conversations, restore relationships, and open doors that, in the heat of the noise, would have closed forever. Life has moments when everything feels like a big storm. Fear screams, anxiety tightens, and haste pushes us to thoughtless decisions. But calm, when put into practice, changes the scenario. In Mark 4, Jesus calmed the wind and the sea with just one word. This shows us that serenity can transform chaos into a path of peace. Moses before the Red Sea is another example of calm in the midst of despair. The people shouted, fear took over, but he heard God's voice. The Lord will fight for you, and you will hold your peace. Exodus 14:14. That calm not only held back the anxiety of the people, but also opened a way where there was no road. The impossible became possible because someone chose to trust instead of rushing in. Calm is like a compass in the midst of chaos. When everyone is running aimlessly, she points the right way. Instead of seeing only the storm, she reveals hidden opportunities. Often, it is in the calm that we discover that the biggest obstacles are actually bridges to new beginnings. What seemed like the end becomes a new beginning through serenity. On a daily basis, when anxiety comes like a wave, take a deep breath and remember, calm is strength, not weakness. Pray, declare peace over your heart, and trust that God can turn any storm into a firm road. This practice changes the way we face problems and gives us the serenity to realize that each struggle can also be the beginning of a new path. Anger is fast, loud, and often destructive. It appears on impulse and leaves marks that are difficult to erase. Peace, on the other hand, is serene, patient, and silent, but its strength is much greater. Proverbs 16:32 reminds us that a patient man is better than a warrior. It is better to control his spirit than to conquer a city. In other words, the real victory is not in shouting louder, but in keeping the heart at peace. Jesus was the greatest example of peace in the face of anger. Even insulted, persecuted, and attacked, he chose not to fight back. His calm dismantled accusations and transformed enemies into witnesses of his greatness. This posture teaches that responding with serenity is not being weak, but strong enough not to allow anger to dictate the rules. It is self-control in its highest form. When we choose peace, we prevent arguments from becoming meaningless battles. A home can be destroyed by words spoken in the heat of anger, but it can also be restored by a calm response. Romans 12:21 reinforces this principle. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Peace always builds, while anger inevitably destroys. In practice, we can train this choice in simple, everyday situations. Instead of reacting immediately to an offense, practice silence and take a deep breath. Say a short prayer asking for serenity and ask for wisdom before speaking. Thus, you exchange the impulse of anger for the force of peace and discover that the true power is not in fighting back, but in diffusing conflicts calmly and serenely. We often seek answers in the midst of noise, but it is in silence that God speaks most clearly. Elijah experienced this when he hid in a cave, desperate and anxious. He expected to hear God's voice in the strong wind, earthquake, or fire, but the Lord revealed himself in a still, small voice. 1 Kings 19. The calm made room for Elias to perceive the right direction. Haste and anxiety act like a fogged lens that distorts vision. Serenity, on the other hand, clears the heart, allowing us to see what was hidden. Often the answer is already in front of us, but the rush does not let us notice. James 1:19 teaches us, "Let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." The secret is to listen more and react less. When we learn to practice silence, we find unexpected solutions. How many times, after a break of calm, have you not seen something that seemed impossible minutes before? Patience works like a key that opens hidden doors. Noise closes accesses, but silence reveals exits that only divine wisdom can show. In practice, create intentional moments of silence throughout your day. Turn off your cell phone for a few minutes, take a deep breath, and pray silently. Ask God what He wants to say, and wait. It may sound simple, but this habit has the power to reveal profound answers. Calm, like gentle rain, cleanses the noises of the soul and makes room for wisdom to manifest itself. Anxiety is like a foggy lens. The more you try to see, the less you can. The serene heart, on the other hand, acts as a glass cleaner, revealing the scenery clearly. When fear dominates, we only see giants, but when calm reigns, we see opportunities. It is exactly this difference that separates despair from confidence, defeat from victory. David is a classic example of this. While the army of Israel saw only the threat of Goliath, it saw the opportunity to show God's power. The serene heart gave him the confidence to face what seemed impossible. The same happened to Peter. When he looked at Jesus on the water, he walked in serenity. But when she let anxiety overwhelm, she began to sink. Serenity brings clarity where anxiety only breeds fear. Philippians 4:6-7 teaches us to surrender everything to God in prayer so that His peace will guard our hearts and minds. That's the secret. The more we rest, the more we can see beyond the circumstances. The serene heart sees promises where anxious eyes only see problems. In practice, when you feel anxiety trying to take over, do a simple exercise. Write down on paper what is taking away your peace. Then pray by giving each item to God. This act transforms anxiety into rest and strengthens confidence. Thus you experience firsthand that serenity is not just an emotion, but an inner strength that opens vision and brings true peace. Haste is usually a trap disguised as a quick fix. Saul fell into it when, anxious for the prophet Samuel's delay, he offered the sacrifice without waiting. The result was the loss of God's favor and the ruin of his reign. 1 Samuel 13. This episode shows how precipitation can be costly, turning opportunities into regrets. Calmness, on the other hand, is a protection against wrong decisions. Joseph is the opposite example. Even in the face of injustices and delays, he waited patiently. If he had acted in a hurry, he might have sought revenge or given up on the dreams God gave him. But his serenity preserved him, and in due time, the promise was fulfilled. This proves that calm not only protects, but also sets the stage for lasting victories. Proverbs 19:2 is straightforward. It is not good to proceed without reflection, and he that is hasty sins. Calm works as an invisible wall against mistakes that could be fatal. It doesn't eliminate struggles, but strengthens the heart with confidence and faith. While haste is driven by the fear of losing, calm is guided by the assurance that God is never late. In practice, you can apply this by making a habit of consulting God before every major decision. Say a quick prayer, read a verse, take a deep breath. This simple pause movement already protects from the error of precipitation. So, instead of stumbling over anxiety, you walk with firm steps, guided by the serenity that only calmness in God can offer. Calm is a silent weapon, but one with a profound impact. In a world where many believe that winning is shouting louder or reacting strongly, serenity proves otherwise. Proverbs 25:15 states that by long suffering a prince is persuaded, and a soft tongue breaks to the bone. In other words, calm has the power to convince more than fury. It transforms situations without the need for violence. David understood this when he had the chance to kill Saul in the cave. Anyone, driven by anger or haste, would have enjoyed the moment. But he chose calm, spared the king's life, and showed that patience is stronger than impulse. This attitude not only preserved his conscience, but also proved that wisdom is worth more than brute force. Jesus also showed the strength of calmness when he responded to hatred with silence. Faced with unfair accusations, he did not rush into arguments. His serenity was so powerful that it baffled enemies and disarmed accusations. This example teaches us that we don't always need to have the last word. Sometimes, peace-laden silence is the most forceful response. In practice, we can apply this in everyday life in discussions, criticisms, or injustices. Instead of reacting immediately, choose calm as a shield. Breathe, keep silence, and let serenity speak for you. Often, this posture not only disarms those around you, but also strengthens your own inner strength. Calm is, in fact, the most powerful weapon against haste, anger, and fear. Not all conflict is visible to the eye. Many happen within us: fear, anxiety, insecurity, and peace-stealing comparisons. These internal enemies are silent, but they can be more destructive than external battles. This is where calm becomes essential, functioning as an invisible shield against thoughts that try to bring us down. Silence in the face of the agitated soul is the key to winning. Anna, for example, faced a deep conflict when she wanted a child. He could have screamed, despaired, or compared himself to others. But instead, he poured out his grief in calm prayer before God. 1 Samuel 1. This silent act not only brought relief, but also paved the way for Samuel's miracle. Her calmness diffused an invisible conflict that consumed her. Psalm 94:19 describes it well. In the many cares within me, your consolations refreshed my soul. Calm does not eliminate external problems, but reorganizes internal ones. When anxiety tries to scream, serenity works like a soft voice that reminds us, God is still in control. This inner strength is what disarms the conflicts hidden in the heart. In practice, you can experience this by turning worries into prayers. Write down your fears, surrender them to God, and then practice a few minutes of silence. This pause is not a waste of time. It is a rest that generates inner strength. Just like Anna, you will realize that calmness not only calms the heart, but also sets the stage for great victories. Most people believe that strength lies in muscles, screams, or quick wins. But the Bible shows that true greatness lies in waiting. Job is proof of this. He lost everything, faced pains that few could bear, but remained firm. His patience did not make him weak, but stronger than any warrior. He won not by haste, but by perseverance. Abraham also had to learn that the promise would come at the right time. He waited years for Isaac to be born, even when logic said it was too late. Patience was his greatest strength because he sustained faith when everything around him screamed despair. So did David, who endured years of running away from Saul until he finally took the throne. Patience shaped him more than the sword. Hebrews 6:15 sums up this reality well. And so, waiting patiently, he obtained the promise. This teaches us that calmness is not just resistance, but a kind of inner strength that overcomes fear and anxiety. While haste tries to anticipate results, patience keeps us firm until God's plan is fulfilled in perfect timing. In practice, exercising patience starts in simple areas. Instead of complaining about traffic, turn the moment into prayer. When faced with a painful wait, remember the stories of Job, Abraham, and David. Write down your expectations and surrender them to God. This posture changes everything because it teaches that patience is, in fact, a secret force that sustains and leads to victories that haste would never achieve. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, everything has its appointed time, and there is a time for every purpose under heaven. Calm is precisely what helps us see this right time. When anxiety presses, we want immediate results, but when we rest in serenity, we realize that even delays are part of the plan. Calm is like a divine clock that teaches us to wait. Hosea is a great example of this. If he had tried to force his way out of prison, he might never have become governor of Egypt. He knew how to wait for God's time, and therefore reached a place of honor. His calmness protected him from the frustration of haste and showed that each step had a purpose. What seemed like a delay, in fact, was preparation for something bigger. Anxiety makes us run aimlessly, but calm brings confidence. It is like a gardener who knows the right time to harvest. If he plucks it earlier, he loses the fruit. If you wait too long, it rots. But when you act at the right time, the result is perfect. Serenity is that compass that shows that God's not yet never means never. In practice, begin to ask in prayer, Lord, is the time right? Instead of acting only on impulse, use calmness as a filter. Make notes of your dreams and observe how God opens doors at the right time. This avoids frustration and strengthens your faith. Calm not only protects, but reveals the perfect timing of each thing, showing that waiting is part of victory. Fear is noisy. It screams inside the mind and paralyzes actions. But calmness works like a soft voice that silences that internal noise. Moses experienced this before the Red Sea. The people were panicking, but he heard the voice of God telling them to trust and stand firm. Calm turned despair into an open path. It is in serenity that fear loses its power. Jesus showed the same truth by sleeping in the midst of the storm, Mark 4. While the disciples were anxious and desperate, he rested. This rest was not carelessness, but total trust in God. When he got up and ordered the sea to calm down, he made it clear that calm is stronger than any fear. Serenity has the power to transform inner screams into deep peace. Isaiah 41:10 reinforces this promise. Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I strengthen you and help you and uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. Calm is born from this certainty. We are not alone. When faith takes the place of anxiety, fear loses its strength. It's like trading a storm scenario for a road of trust. In practice, you can apply this when fear tries to dominate. Take a deep breath, state this verse out loud, and choose to rest in God. Remember that serenity is not the absence of problems, but the presence of trust. Thus, even when fear screams within you, calm will be stronger and will turn chaos into peace. Calmness is more than an emotional state. It's a daily choice that transforms the way we live. Every biblical example we have seen shows that waiting, being silent, and trusting are not signs of weakness, but of inner strength. What anger destroys, peace rebuilds. What fear paralyzes, serenity liberates. The question is, will you continue to let anxiety guide your life, or will you choose the rest that comes from God? What if, instead of reacting on impulse, you started responding wisely? Imagine what your relationships, your decisions, and even your emotional health would be like. Calm opens doors that noise closes and reveals paths that haste would never show. How about starting today, exchanging haste for patience, fear for confidence, and anxiety for the silence that brings peace? The transformation begins in simple steps. A prayer in the morning, a few minutes of silence during the day, a deep breath before responding in the midst of anger. These small habits become invisible walls that protect your heart and strengthen your faith. Ask yourself, what area of my life needs to be guarded by God's serenity? If this content spoke to you, don't leave it for later. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to find peace again. And before leaving, comment below. What was the part of this message that touched your heart the most? Your answer may be just what someone else needs to read today.